It doesn't take 13 hours to reach you. It doesn't. It doesn't take a contrived circumstance and situation in 3 weeks of lousy food and terrible accommodation. Unless you're in like some of the places I went to, we used to call them the upper middle way. They're very high end, very nice, like a vacation spot called a retreat. But let's say a retreat in Thailand and shit, you're getting like a soup once a day. No one speaks English. 13 hours. Kids are throwing rocks on your little goopy, your little room. There's no peace at all in the temple. There's dogs. Every time any bell rings, the dogs go off, like moaning like from hell. There's airplanes flying over. There's basically no external peace. Why would it take so long to arrive at where you already are? If you come to non-duality, you must believe or have a sense of something rings true with those statements that you are what you're looking for. Yeah, you must. Or you're walking up the wrong tree with non-duality. Yeah. Or the seeker is the sought. Or you heard something from Huang Po and he just threw out a little line that you skimmed over, but you've gone back to, and it's like whatever can be perceived can't be perceiving. What? That just negated the whole narration that I've been listening to for 60-something years, because the narration is the body is fixing itself as what's perceiving. Yet it was just cut completely off. It wasn't like, all right, we're going to have to go in that narration and cut out the bad, nice and good, only remember nice memories, forget about the traumas, all this bullshit. You just cut it off with like just one little machete swing. Whatever can be perceived can't be perceived. Yeah. Now that if something like that triggers a response in you, you're open to non-duality in a sense, because non-duality is before the first moment of a spiritual journey. It's before that. Yeah. And the first step in time of a spiritual journey is just an obscuring agent till you are what you're looking for. If you are what you're looking for, then looking for it would obviously not work. Yes. Yes. It wasn't like the line wasn't you are what you're looking for and get looking for it. You know, it wasn't like a command. Get looking for it. It said what's looking is what you're looking for. So that's what we're looking for. Because what you're looking for is what's looking. Yeah. So why would you want to use what you're looking for to find what you're looking for? Yeah. It makes no sense if you are that. If you don't believe it, then it makes total sense. I'm going to concentrate and focus and just try to block out. I'm just striving to get to that Buddha field of no thought. Yeah? So that's a thought in and of itself. But let's forget that. So we're going to do this. That's fine and dandy. But if you flip the message of non-duality, and that's like you flip on that little idea, basically your journey has got this, the spiritual journey is going to be disrupted, obviously, because that gets put into question immediately. Yeah, you go, wait a minute. If I try to build a raft, a spiritual raft, to arrive at the other shore, yeah, and then when I arrive at the other shore, on having never left, why do I need to build a raft? Yeah, why? I built a raft because I thought I was somewhere and I needed to go across something to get to where I wanted to go. But if I make it over to the other shore, I immediately have the realization on having never left. That's how I arrived at the other shore. Yeah. So basically, just don't see the value in it anymore, because the other shore is right where I am. So I left one shore to get to the other shore, and the shore I wanted to arrive at was whatever shore I was at. Yeah. So you must be what you're looking for, not the shore. So arriving somewhere and having the vehicles arrive somewhere, the idea of that gets muted when you are already there. Yeah. Why would I call up an Uber to get a ride to my own house when I'm in the house? Yeah. It would make no sense. Now, it makes a lot of sense if I really believe I'm in a house, but it's not really my house. I thought if it was my house, everything would be great. I'd be totally stabilized. Nothing would ever bother me in my house. So I'm going to call up the spiritual Uber to find and take me to my house, which is just a freaking another conceptual fairyland. Yeah. And in fact, right where you are is right where it is. If not, that's not non-duality. Yeah. Non-duality is just a negation of what a negation of the dualistic system that leads us to believe that we are not where we are. It leads us to believe that we've been displaced and we have to return from the source that somehow we broke away from, and maybe feel terrible about it or feel like something did that. Yeah. And therefore, we want to have that reunion with that. That's not the message. Yeah. I had this thing we were sharing it a couple weeks ago. It was in Oz. It was in Byron Bay. I picked up some hitchhiker, and she told me about this event that was going to happen. I liked the lady, so I said, "Oh, talk to me more." She showed me a brochure, and that's the first time I saw the statement from St. Francis: "What's looking is what you're looking for." So I went, I talked to the people, and I signed up. The next day, I was in a group of like 150 people with all these people serving that I didn't know any of them. They're all Rajneesh people, Osho people. So I stayed there the 8 days, and every day they had this event that would produce cathartic events. Yeah, they'd have music playing. They'd have these people all around the walls, not saying anything, just holding the space, which was very cool. And they had mattresses, and everything would be going off, crying, going through, cathartic events. And so one of the cathartic events that occurred with me is I started crying, just unbelievable. And I kept saying, I can never get back. I can never get back. I can never get back. Yeah. Oh, I can never get back. Like something, I've been separated from source and I can never get back. Yeah. And it was super sweet. And everyone looked at me as, oh, what a wonderful fucking realization this guy's having. Let's take him, let's put him in the first place, And yet, a couple years later, I realized why I can never get back, because I never left. Now, the realization I never left wasn't that romantic. It wasn't that exciting. I couldn't write blogs about it. Yeah, I wouldn't look great with my community. Oh, I finally returned to where I thought I could never get back to. I never left. Let's move on from that. I never left. What? Yeah. That's why I can't get back. I can't get back because I never left. This is what we hope to sort of convey in these talks. Yeah. If it works for you, it's not just, hopefully it doesn't work, really. Hopefully it reveals all of your ways of trying to get it fail. Yeah. Like left with your own devices, hopefully you'll see they're not your devices. But if you fervently don't believe this, why stick with it? Why stick in non-duality? Non-duality isn't to make you bummed out and a fucking a nihilist or next, fucking. That's the mental state using it and turning it into something. Non-duality is nothing. It's a fact. Yeah. You can arrive at it by seeing what isn't a fact that was assumed to be one, really. Yeah. So it seems like you go into duality and then arrive at non-duality. But never left. So the whole believing in what we believe in is imaginary. It's seemingly so. It's appearing to be true to us. Yeah. It doesn't have a lick of truth in it at all. It appears to be true to us. Yeah. And its appearance has to, there's a lot of huffing and puffing to keep blowing up this fucking plastic doll.
Thinking that it needs to be.
And we don't even have enough breath.
Assuming that
it's like 90 years.
Presuppositions. The subconscious conscious self. Conscious self is a type of world, a duality.
And it'll be like nothing ever happened. Really. It'll be like nothing ever happened. Just like
it is projecting
it'll be like
matters.
nothing ever fucking happened. Yeah. Just like
once it recognizes the projection,
like it never happened.
it's whiz.
Like 5 minutes ago seems like it never happened. Yes. And definitely
recognize that it is.
Definitely doesn't seem like it's happening.
A reflection.
So basically,
impermanence.
We're putting like tails on imaginary comets. Yeah. Putting on tails to imaginary comets. We're the space that's all fucking firing. We are that. We're the screen that allows any kind of movie to be played on it. It's never affected by any of the movies.
And those movies are the stories that are expressed and told through language regarding that which we're not. As it
not funny, usually.
But
I mean, let's say an army movie would blow holes in
it causes the apparent appearance of as though there's permanence. When there is not. When there's neither exclusive
Yet without the screen, how would the movie appear? How would it appear without the screen? Without the light of our mind dreaming, how could this be projected? Yeah? As the Course in Miracles said, it's projection, not perception. Perception is the secondary effect. It's projection first. That's dreaming. And then there's a perceiving of the dreaming from a dream. Yes? An identification as the body. And because this believes it's real, it gives reality to the projection. But it's dreaming. It's dreaming, dreaming, dreaming. It's a projection of mind. Yes? And then that mind, to live in the dreaming, has to become seemingly identified as a body. And then it sees the dream it's having as real can be. Yeah. Thank God it gets a break every night and goes into another crazy realm of dreaming. And then comes back to your wake dream and thinks it's real. Yeah. But there's so many holes you see through. Don't you feel it? How can something that you christened as the worst thing that ever happened to you in a few years can be seen as the best thing that happened? You see that there is no inherent meaning to anything other than what's given it. Right? You do. I mean, we're not 2 levels below a coconut. You can observe what's going on. We can observe that time seems to go really slow when I'm doing something I suck. I hate. Yeah. If I'm surfing or something, it goes super fast. What do you think? Time speeds up? Just, you know what I mean? It's part of the dreaming. Yeah? It's like slowing down the wheels so there can be exquisite suffering about being stuck somewhere that you don't want to be stuck in for 8 more hours. Yeah? Or speeding up the wheels so that you can forget a miracle in a half an hour. And then just remember resentment of 40 years. Yes? It's kaleidoscopic, and what's dreaming is unbelievable. So basically, it seems as real can be, but it seems as real can be. It's not as real can be. We are as real can be. We, not the body, but what we are. Yeah?
Which is an energy field.
Can make things
energy fields.
Real. Yeah. But they can never be real because there's only reality. Yeah? And reality is not of 2. It's not of 1. It just is.
Mark Milton.
a way, if you've been following us for years, why? No. I hope at least the direction we're attempting to communicate has been set. Like the horse in front of the cart, yeah? Just a certain sense of what we are is of a timeless nature, and what we are not is of a mental nature, yeah? A time-based nature. So what we are is always prior to what we're not, yeah? There's no what you're not when it's presupposed to be before. It is not before. It's just presupposed to be before. We are always the before, always. Nothing comes before us. We are always the before. And why would you want to convince not you that it's not you? Just see it from what you are. You don't need to convince what you're not. What you're not is of limited understanding. Has feeling. It can go someplace. It can. Yeah? It's quite limited because it's constructed of time and of things. So anytime it thinks of no time and no thing, it's framed as in time and thing. It can't help itself. Yeah. It sees everything from its own system. It can't help itself. And it's not going to go against the primary programming. It fully believes it can get out of it. Self believes it can get out of self. It has objectified what we're calling self, and it believes as a subject it's going to leave it. Yeah? It's impossible. Self can't get out of self. To waste time trying to convince it that it can't doesn't go anywhere. It's going to keep on trying. It's going to, if it runs into a wall and it says it's completely super clear in like 80 different languages, self can't get out of self, it's going to pull back, just get in another vehicle and ram in again. And it's going to pull back and it just keeps going to go.
Yep.
But why can't self get out of self? First of all, there isn't one. That's why.
It's conjured.
Yeah.
Yeah. Self-conjured, conjured self.
There needs to be an in to get out of. If there's no in, you can't get out. Yeah. I tried with drugs. And I mean, I gave it a damn good shot.
No, the body mind did.
I tried to get
the conjured self did that, not you.
Get out of there constantly. And I was always super pissed. It never seemed to work. I didn't realize
you were given that body mind.
Get out of what I'm not in. I didn't
those
realize
tests.
it until I did. Yeah. We're just trying to share it. It's such a
you not even notice the tests. They were not.
It really is. Yeah. So, all right. I think.
That's why you can understand these guys from California. That's probably why.
Yes. Let's go. Let's go to the Hollywood Squares. Let's see. We have the first thing is to Jane. Jane, who starred in the famous science fiction movie
Tomorrow,
2001? A little hint. I'll be back. And the Terminator. Oh, whatever. All right, so let's go. There's the question. Mary's first. All right, Mary. But then Mary shall be last.
The first shall be last. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Mary.
Oh, Paul. Yeah, I've been sober 30 years and doing the course for like 15 with great commitment and desperation. And I'm listening to you. So my question is like,
Not like, just a question.
There's got to be a part of me that gets it, man. Like I feel that resonance with what you're saying, and it aligns with the course and so many of the teachings that
This isn't a teaching.
I'm drawn to. But I guess, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I just wanted to find it clear. I just found.
But it's like when you say just see what you're not. I'm wondering if what's seeing what I'm not is what I'm not also. Like, can I trust?
Be there or be square.
I just caught it second appearance. That's great.
What? Okay.
Yeah. So it's usually a big deal to see the first appearance, but then they don't realize the second appearance is also so. So now you've seen the second ring. That's pretty good. Just keep going.
Keep going. So when you talk about like downloads, yeah. So I know that there's downloads, and it's like anyway whatever. I trust that. But then there'll be these big backlashes, or maybe that's it's like Jesus, my body is just aching all the time, and yeah, like a lot of maybe a backlash to the downloads.
Yeah. Well, one system doesn't like to be showed up. Yeah. I mean, it's a good sign in a way, because when it's comfortable, yeah, that's when it has you totally blanketed, really. So it's when something starts to occur to irritate it, then you can see it, yeah? So you never will see that second, there's not a second, but let me just share it that way. So then you recognize the camera went back a little bit and you see the self, yeah? Yes? And then there's a certain suspicion that what's claiming to see the self may be a self also. So now you've seen the second one. Without seeing the first one, the second one would never have shown up, yeah? This is the beauty of it. So the first one, you recognize it brings up the second one out of the weeds, yeah? Yeah, so now you recognize that. Now the aperture opens up even more. Then you may see it arise again, yeah? But this time, you usually see it as soon as it tries to put the suit on, yeah? So you see the emperor with no clothes, yeah? Now, it's not necessary to go through seeing it appear anymore. You caught it in a sense. Yeah. It's usually not gonna be caught in just recognizing the first self. The second one is pretty good, yeah. And then maybe for me it was about 5 or 6 of them, yeah. And then there was a quantum leap, or I like to use the 100th monkey phenomenon story, where something was gotten and then it just went big, yeah? So there was no need to be looking and giving the next appearance a new number, because it's all the same, like smoke and mirror, really, yeah? But the funny thing is, without seeing the first one, the second one is not going to come up. You're not going to have any idea that it's cooking, yeah? And of course, when the aperture opens, the system that likes the fixed aperture is probably going to throw a fit, you know? I mean, why wouldn't it? Yeah. It's not threatened by a lifelong spiritual process. It's threatened when its own irrelevance is coming into the light, yeah? When its imaginariness is started to be noticed, that's a threat. That's a huge threat to it, yeah? As long as you're busy trying to get out of it, it's happy as hell, because you've given it a reality it doesn't have, yeah? So it doesn't even care. Yeah.
There's
You've had all the studying already, honey. Let it all be together and let the spirit of it all take over now. You don't need to help it. You'll be just observing it. You'll see it, yeah? And you'll see it, and that echo will have a very heavy, a nice thickness, a nice sound, like an unspoken yes, reverberating, yeah? And you're on to something. And I have faith in it. I have. So, yeah. Don't try to, you don't need, this thing ignites itself. Your days of throwing a log on the fire are over. Yeah, now just warm yourself at the fire.
Thank you.
Yeah? Yeah. All right, Mike. Blue hand number 2. Oh, sorry, yes. Excited. I'm actually on a dead horse that I gotta get back on the saddle.
And yes. Luca.
What?
Luca's on mute.
Luca.
Hi, Paul. I wanted to ask you something about what you started the talk with. You here? Can you see me? Yeah.
Yes.
You were speaking about the body, and I kind of get a sense from a lot of things that I've heard in terms of non-duality that there's still like a hue in some of it of like more, let's say, traditional spirituality. And what put me off that in the first place was like years ago was this kind of maybe like elevation of the formless over the form, as if it's like somehow better. The whole, you know, when you say, I've heard you say in talks also, like there's no loving gaze here, there are no flowers, there's no stage, that kind of thing. So the one thing I don't get in what I've heard you say is when you say like that the body is an obscuring agent, that kind of thing. Do you mean like the identification with it, or to see it as like something like having an independent reality, that kind of thing?
Both.
Is that what you...
It's both, because the body mind thinks, it believes that it is separate from everybody else. It's that, and also identification with itself.
Yeah. So it's
both. And even other excuses.
When there's
reasons,
a claiming of being the seer,
reasons,
the hearer,
meanings,
and the feeler,
purposes,
and the taster, and the toucher,
that are never required, they're not there, they
the
don't
body.
need to be there, they're not really there, they're conjured.
Yeah.
They're thought to be there.
See, I don't care. I have nothing about the
so
body.
if it cannot figure out a meaning, reason, purpose for something it believes in, it's going to conjure it.
Is extracted. From seeing, the idea of a seer is extracted. From hearing, the idea of a hearer. And all of that is suddenly pictured as a body. Yeah. So it's the body is given another role from the mental state's point of view. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So the body as an action figure, fine and dandy to me. The body as the doer, the thinker, the hearer, the feeler, the taster, the toucher, the smeller, that doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the sense of self is not of the body. The sense of self comes from the claiming of doing, seeing,
knowing,
hearing, think, all that stuff.
No.
All those verbs that are life. Yeah. The claiming of them,
what the being
imply there's a noun, and then the
is
body
behind all the manifestations
chosen
of
in
the
a
body.
weird way, or it becomes the symbol of that. Yeah.
So like
so the body is in a. Yes,
sorry.
It's been given a role of, let's say, being the center of the universe, when that's not its seat assignment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm attempting to. The body is to me is the accumulation of claiming pictured. Yeah. Like the mental state gives, pins the attributes of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, thinking, all this onto the body. Yeah. So it's making it something. The mental state is making it something other than what it is. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I like to see. The body is not, the body is neutral. Yes, in a way. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
But symbolize. It's how things. See, when you're remembered as a doer, you're pictured as a body. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in the thought, in the memories. The memory, it's not remembering you as a body. It's really remembering you as the doer, the one who had the vacation. Yes, the seer, the hearer, the feeler, the taster, the toucher. But all of that is represented with an image of a body. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see? So the body is sort of like the mental state puts a ton of weight into a half-ton pickup. Yeah. It's too much for the apparatus to hold. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I see it. There's nothing.
Damn,
the body is not for or against
it.
it.
Is.
Yeah. It's just a functioning.
There's no.
But there's been a lot of meaning given to it.
There's no waving. You can tell it's so immediate. The pixels.
Okay, thank you.
The stream.
Yeah.
It's crisp. It's clear. Damn.
Thanks, Luca. I'm muting John now.
Luca, are you from Italy?
My dad's Italian.
Far better than the servers of the
where are you right now?
Facebook servers and
England.
YouTube servers.
Oh, in England. Wow.
It's
All right.
much better.
Thank you.
This is crazy.
It's definitely
Nico,
worth it.
Nico, the Zen.
And even much better than.
All right, who's the next one? John?
No comparisons compared to. Outside.
I'm in recovery, and I know that you're doing the other series, the reflection, and I'm 10 months in, and it's been, my recovery has been, my addiction took me to, I had a serious addiction, so I needed a serious program to kind of combat that, and my recovery is going incredibly well. And to me, in a sense, having the 12 steps almost gives you an unfair advantage in terms of understanding non-duality and understanding, that sense of a higher power or something outside yourself. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts or comments. So, in addiction, it's about putting substance in your body to change your mood and, to escape from reality. So I've been on, the role of antidepressants, I guess, is also to change reality. And so I've had a period of 7 years, and I've just cut them down to 0 now. So I've had 2 weeks without any antidepressants, and it's a really slow process to get them off. And I guess my expectation was, and it's come true, is that
turns out body mind actually
reality feels amazing
as well.
And it seems that antidepressants just puts a soft focus lens over the aperture. And I just wondered if that's been your sort of experience with others, or that prescribed medication can actually add another filter that prevents you from movement towards non-duality, or is another barrier to growth or whatever.
Well, I've never taken any medication, but I've worked with a lot of people. Yeah, and in duality, in a sense, there's always going to be a payoff cost. Yeah. So the payoff is maybe you won't kill yourself, but the cost is you're not going to feel fucking much. Yeah. You know what I mean? And what I found with a lot of prescribed medications, it's harder to get off of that than, you know, street drugs, really. And you have to take another medication to get off the first one. And then you got to take a third to get off, you know what I mean? And it's a very, it's like once you step on the flypaper, every move after it incites the flypaper, yeah? So the best thing, I think, I always have a lot of respect for people who wean themselves off it, and maybe they can stay in abstinence where they don't have to go there anymore, yeah? And of course, the action figure, we were talking in England in a joke, and they call it clear film, but we call it saran wrap in America. But a lot of these drugs act almost like a muffler, yeah? So they muffle the sense of onness in a way, the consciousness. They don't do consciousness, but they muffle the sense of it. You feel like you're drugged out. You feel like you're out to lunch. You feel like you've got a cloth over your face. Yeah. Yeah, it's everyone's on something, you know, it's amazing. It's really an incredible event here. And I was talking to a lady doing another interview for some recovery thing today. I should look into it before I say yes, because I have no idea what they're doing, but I just did it. And we were talking about the addiction. To me, the real addiction is the mental's addiction to the idea of being the doer, the thinker, the feeler, the seer, and stuff like that. And really, when you said change reality, you were changing a reality, not the reality. The reality doesn't change, but what we're taking to be real can change by just taking some pills or putting on some sunglasses, yeah? That can be altered, but what is can't be altered by any of our little shenanigans. And thank God, really. So yeah, I'm all for it, bro. Stick with it. The action figure. If let's say if someone woke up and they were diabetic, would they stop shooting insulin?
Supersedes.
No. Yeah. The diabetes is of the body. Yeah. Alcoholism is of the brain and body, and you need a way of life because the action figure is in a structure of time. Things change, lots of shit happens, more shit happens, and on and on and on and on and on. And for some of us, we need a way of life, yeah? We need some sound principles so that the GPS, the old GPS of the action figure can get upgraded to another GPS, yeah? And we call that upgrade the higher power, so to speak.
And those are the uploads, so not the downloads. The uploads are always constantly streaming as
like very fast.
The absolute.
I attracted so much shit you couldn't believe. I mean, to get over
right alongside my consciousness,
is difficult, but getting run over twice in the same night with the same car is a fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
Sure, and that was just one of thousands of things that happened. Yeah, and so it behooved this action figure to get a new GPS. Definitely. And and because it's always on the move, I can't go in the garage that long. I'm living, you know. So I need a way of life, and AA's been that way of life. So I've entertained 32 years just recently, and that which needed to be corrected has been corrected. Yeah.
It's the most.
So
liveliest streaming.
The fuel injection line of the Toyota.
It supersedes any program.
Some new spark plugs were put in. Some new tires.
Example of
pretty
comparison.
I wouldn't use it to be the first float of a great parade.
Very good at comparison to that.
Places to jump in water, to do this, to do that. It's just perfect.
Yeah. Is the contrast between Zoom
using antidepressants, for example,
and YouTube.
And I think in the words that you're talking about here, you don't want any potential distractions or disruptions to what could be, the download. So
software.
Well, But see, sometimes, you know, in the world of the action figure,
or extreme.
you know, there's
Ability to
taxes
be the
to
pixel
pay,
rates.
and sometimes you have to rip the Caesars what Caesars. So I had a woman who was in the program with me,
So
and we
there
were
is
house painters. We had a company, and
Maya.
I was with
You
her.
prove it
She was my
as
major
pixels.
relationship. I was with her more than anyone else.
It's finite.
And for these
But
first
behind
5
that
years, she was an angry mofo sometimes.
is the
She would flip out,
energy.
brushes and shit like that. Then she tried to kill herself.
like into
Didn't succeed. And
the
they
current
put her on Prozac. And I'll tell you, she
that
was a nicer person to work
produces
with
electricity.
after that. So my old
To
ideas had
light
to
up the light bulb.
change because that was an upgrade for her. Something that helped her. Yeah. So I don't know. You know, it can go a lot of different ways. But the optimum to me is abstinence. No mood altering anything. Yeah. Drugs, alcohol. Yeah. Maybe some coffee and stuff, or a nice raw dessert. Cocoa's still there. But basically, pretty much abstinence from all that. Yeah. Yeah, and the beautiful thing now is you can get established in never starting any of that shit. So you won't have to have thousands of skillful means to stop. Yeah? You just won't start, which is a beautiful state. Beautiful state. There's nothing you need to do there. Yeah? There's no need for skillful means. You're not starting. Yeah? You're sober, and that's that. Yeah? And you're free of the antidepressants. That's great. So, thanks, John. Mike? Mike, anyone here? No?
What? What'd you say?
Anyone else? No? I was asking if anyone is. Oh, great. That's great. I'll just stare. I'm practicing my loving gaze.
Oh, our friend James.
Oh, I love the sarcasm, Paul. I love the sarcasm.
James.
If anything else, what keeps that
James, are you in the room
keeps
next door to
the
my
seat
room?
assignment of being
James, are
that
you
much
in the
more.
room next door to my room? Getting worried. It's like that horror movie.
Fun.
He's in the house.
Inside the house.
Entertaining itself.
I'm gonna.
He's in the
Yeah, that's all I wanted was to get on and goof a little. No, I tell you, yeah, I did just want to share that I could relate to the person who was talking about recovery and the Course in Miracles, and I really chewed on that stuff a bunch as what I'm not. You know what I mean? And I really credit a lot of it started with listening to Paul's videos, but these sessions have really helped me sort of
Help the action figure.
obtain a little bit more of that third person view
The action figure.
of James.
You're not that action figure.
And
So
I kind of feel like the Course does the same things the videos
nobody
do.
needs help. Well, of course,
it
the
talks
body
to you
mind needs
so
all
much
kinds of
that
help,
something
but
gets
you're not
through.
the body mind. See.
But it's really just one little thing. That's all it's trying to say is one
There it
little
is.
thing.
It's just
I don't know how
recognizing
many pages that book
you're
is.
not that which started heavy. Have drinks.
You know, you can take 5 years. It's still trying to say just that one. It's just trying to get that one sperm through. Just that,
yes.
or that one pair of shoes that fits. And these deals really help. I don't know how. It's like when the urge to drink disappeared. It was like
The urge to drink.
I likened it to a headache going away. You don't know really when it disappears. You just know that it's not there anymore.
Oh, yeah, like a toothache as well. Oh, the freaking toothaches.
A little bit of what Paul's talking
They're worse
about
than
for me is
headaches.
like
Well,
that.
not necessarily. They're
Some of
equivalent.
this stuff I just noticed isn't
Descriptions of
there anymore.
migraines before.
Or the sine waves have gotten a lot more.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I'm talking on topic or not, but I just want a chance.
It don't
it's
matter.
So cool to be able to share with you guys so much.
Just express.
You
don't have to be on topic.
I'm getting all perclamped now.
Nah, you're doing fine. That's cool.
Hey, James, maybe we're attempting artificial insemination.
I think we are. I think.
Yeah.
Well, you know, all I can come up are with probably not appropriate things to share in mixed company, but I just think that there's a lot of potential for T-shirts with that stuff. You know, that particular metaphor.
Well, I'll tell you, the spiritual sperm, you got to have the right audience for that to work.
Well, you know, I just decided that it was like
certain events. It didn't go well. No.
I just decided to let it happen, man. You know.
The person, it doesn't hit them until they leave. Then you can hear them talking about it. What the fuck did that? I never heard those two.
They're slow to catch it.
Two words together.
Doesn't necessarily go over their head, but it slips. They had it in the hand, but then it slipped out.
That worked for me. You know
the
what
ball
I mean?
was thrown intensely over the head. We had for a little while, but then fell to the floor.
But when I met, you know, when I started listening to your videos, it was like, okay, this voice speaks in language that I can understand.
Yes, it's
I don't know what that says about me, but I'm just telling you, you know that.
Well, we appreciate you a lot, James.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys so much. I have to stay up late for this, so I'm a little over caffeinated. Sorry.
Well, we really appreciate you. It's you're almost like a live member of the Zoom.
Yeah, you guys have become like
we're at the live meeting. I miss the live meeting fellowship sometimes with this.
I just talked to a guy that's going back to AA meetings now, which I think is a little premature, to be honest with you. But I live in Florida, where it's like I don't want to start about that, but the whole thing is like if this ends, I'll miss it.
Oh, it's not going to end till I come on and there's no one in any of the squares. All I see is me. That's probably all end it then.
All right, I was on the verge of getting well, but I'm gonna not get completely well. So,
yeah, so you have an excuse to come back. Yeah.
But just have compassion on the messenger.
Don't need an excuse to come back.
That's why we try to emphasize the humor. Yeah, I mean, the humor is the humor you can come back to.
You don't even have to try to emphasize it. It's already there.
It's funny when you're stuck in the middle.
You're already a natural written character. The body and mind could be.
The whole way of shitting fans, divine
that character doesn't even have to try.
I mean, you're not going to get this.
Characters.
Cooper Scoop, for sure.
Again,
Yeah.
all body mind action figures are just characters.
I do think you need I do think
Conjuring
you need a
on
base with
manners
a
of
tulip,
expressions,
some little
all
flower
types
down
of
there or something, but
different
whatever.
types.
You don't have
Neither
to.
right or wrong.
I'm not judging.
Yeah, we got to. Well, listen, there's a suggestion box at the end. At the end of the talk. I never see them, but
yeah, you don't read them.
No.
Does Mike read them?
All right, James. It's good to
see
you.
I guess not.
All right.
That's why we got him to stop tapping his foot, because somebody did email him.
I've been doing that. That's post-traumatic cocaine use.
Before I sign off, I was watching one.
It's Shakti. Shakti's running through my left leg, or it's restless leg syndrome. I don't know which. I'll say it's Shakti.
We paused one of your videos and started staring at your leg once. My daughter was like, because I used to keep you on a loop on Saturday, and she'd be like, "Oh, Paul." She'd walk by. But I was like, "Oh, check out his leg," because I'd never really seen it, and you're wearing shorts, and so we paused it, and we were.
Fucking hell, James. That's fucking funny, man.
Yes.
Damn.
Yes. Well, I'm going to move on with that.
Yeah, right.
Nope.
I'm not going to start showing you my scars and my leg.
They're there on your videos.
Yeah, body mind went through it. He doesn't need the reminder.
James.
The body mind doesn't need the reminder.
No one has any questions. I'm just going to look at everybody. Let's see.
Phoenix,
Chantel, am I saying?
Phoenix has his hand up. He had his hand up
Oh,
before.
Phoenix, all right.
Or she. Phoenix, city or?
I'm here, can you hear me?
Joyce looks very comfortable.
Oh, Phoenix, all right. Phoenix, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Sprawled out on the couch. Sprawled out.
Listening to you. Hi. Been listening to you on YouTube for probably a year or so, and studied the
That's
gospel
not long
for a while,
enough.
and I never found anything
For a
that
while?
resonated so much.
Yeah.
But Jesus Christ, man, the addiction to the mental state sucks.
Fuck.
And as you mentioned earlier, the mental state is just making something. If you become a nihilistic or depressed, the mental state is just making something of the message. It's like, how do you get relief from this mental state? I mean, there's nothing it can do to get relief from itself. So.
No, but you definitely will get relief from it. For
Oh
sure.
yeah, you can.
Because it's out.
The body mind can.
That gives it its.
Just don't give it
light.
any more
Yeah.
attention.
It's
Don't give it any
almost
more
like the
attention.
power of projection.
No.
Projection
Let the
is
thoughts
based
go
on
by.
the light.
Don't entertain them. That's what it
We are
happens.
the light, let's say. And the mental state is sort of
And then that thought turns into, hey, you made that
setting up
you did that. You thought that.
situation.
No, you didn't.
Attention and interest is drawn.
It wants
to
you to,
this
it wants to
idea,
convince you
and then that
for you
light is used
to
to
believe
project the idea.
that you have original thoughts of your own. That
When
way
you
you can
lose
act on them, and
interest
then it
in the
uses
you
you
the
for
light
transportation.
gets
Just as you said before.
Yeah. So the projection can't go as
Uh-huh.
far and can't last as long. Yeah. It weakens. It weakens it. So now the interest and attention, instead of being enslaved to that idea of projecting the story, it's now here to enrich your day and maybe other people's day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, something's always projected, right?
Yes, of course. With the dreaming, all there is dreaming. Yes, but there's
Well, Maya, Maya is the ultimate dreaming.
There's a lot of holes in the dreaming. A lot of holes. Yeah, and the mental state
It's
just
the Maya that
jumps
provides
over them
precipitous
and forgets.
for the dreaming's energy to move freely, as it does.
The eroding of
permanence.
its own platform
Running
is
the
constantly
shows.
there. Yeah. In other words, it's
Running those
constantly
shows of
has to
projection.
paste, copy and paste, copy and paste,
To
copy and
convince
paste. Yeah, it's
that each
exhausting.
body, mind, action figure is separate from everybody and everything else.
So who or what
So
is
if you
dreaming?
lose the
What is dreaming?
Who or
Maya.
what is dreaming?
Maya.
Eh?
Impermanence of
Who or what
Maya.
is dreaming?
mind is dreaming. Yeah.
Maya. Impermanence.
And then we're cast as a premise. Yes.
Cast,
The
right.
mind
So the
projects its
body,
dreaming
mind, action figure is being
by
used
seemingly being identified as the dream.
as though it's being
And
used
that's how the dreaming is given
to
a
give it
reality
all the
or a
beliefs
real
that
meaning.
it conjures.
That's why when
Subconscious,
you
conscious,
lose interest
subconscious,
in the dream,
these beliefs
yeah,
that it thinks that,
and the reality
and
that's
so it
being
takes a
lent
thought,
to
an
the
idea,
dreaming is
and then
shifted.
it claims it as its own. Yeah, that was my thought. I thought about it. You know,
So then
I know
the
because I thought
meaning
about
that's
it.
been given to the dream,
And you know whatever you thought about
it
because you thought about it.
Rest in what,
No, that's been
that's
the presupposition.
The sense of presence, so to speak. If this isn't a tactile sense of onness, it's not gonna. It turns into a sense feltness. Yeah. There's an intimation, like a tactile intimation of nothing. Let's say that can only come to the surface by interest and attention. Yeah. It's always there, but by interest and attention, it can really see
Always
the
everywhere.
Yeah, it's always there. But
Everywhere.
it doesn't matter. A lot of people, it doesn't matter. It's always there. There's
Not
an
just
awareness
in a
of it,
fixed
yeah?
position as
But
here,
when the attention
here
and
or there,
interest
or
is-
anywhere else.
leaves the preoccupation of what you're not,
Everywhere.
then
The
it's here
everywhereness.
to sort of
Impermanence of Maya is the everywhereness of the
rub
nightness.
against that which is always here, to sense it.
It's just appearing as
So
finiteness.
the problem then is, I know that what I'm not is trying to wrestle with the message and make it into, and and
In a
try,
sense,
you know,
it's
as you say,
providing the
losing interest
stages.
is interest. Trying to lose interest is interest.
Yes, yes.
You know, I mean, it's kind of like the conundrum you can't get out of.
Providing
Well, that's beautiful, because if
the
you can't
impermanence
get out of
of
it, it's going to finally lead to
an
entertaining
open-ended
am I in? And when you see the
Conjured
getting
program.
out, the real information is
Conjured
why you're
program.
in. Yeah. The in, when the in comes under suspicion, there's no opposite of that. Yeah. The in has the opposite of out, but before the in, there's no in and out. Yeah.
Been running
So
an
the
hour,
peace is
20 so
before
far.
the bondage, the peace. The peace that comes after the bondage is going to lead to another sense of bondage and peace and bondage and peace. Yeah. But the peace before all understanding has no dualistic. It's not a dualistic slinky. It just is.
Well, it'll come up on there anyway as a participant.
There's no
so
opposite here.
I'll have to keep that up all the time.
Right.
There's no acquiring and losing. There's no finding and losing. There's no arriving
cursor
and
over here.
departing. None of that's going on. It's
Quit
the
the
idea
shot.
of the reality of the in produces a movement to get out, which is that's the slinky. Yeah. This message cuts that off. You're not in. There's no need to get out. So the dualistic engine, which needs that first little oomph to get going, isn't being given that oomph. Yes? You're the oomph. When you believe you're in something, that's the oomph of the drive to get out. And then when the out is the old gravitational pull of the belief you're in something. And then the one to get out, yeah? Without you oomph, that slinky doesn't go. You see it, but it's not dragging any of you with it, yeah? Because you're before it. You're not, there's no in and out in what we are, yeah?
So before that slinky shows up,
So
that is
there's
appearing
a triggering of the triggering
on behalf
of wanting to
of the
get
occurrence
out
of
is
Maya
believing
in the
you're
mental
in.
thought system.
Now, trying to stop,
It
all right,
wants
I'm gonna not try to get out. Doesn't
what you're
fucking
not
work.
to pick up that
Seeing
slinky
that you're not in
and make
works.
use of it. It's another way of
When
putting it.
there's a belief you're in something, and then you try to use a philosophy that says, well, there's no need to get out, and you're really fucked, but you're just holding on to this conceptual idea, that doesn't work. Not being in works, yeah, because the engine doesn't get started, yeah.
In other words, a non-conceptual seeing is what you're saying. Sounds like.
Of course, or it's the seeing of concept.
Yeah.
The seeing of concepts isn't conceptual, no. It's not as far as you think. It's not as far away as we think.
No, I can clearly
It's
see.
there. It's so here that we don't see it in a way. Yeah, that's the joy of being the butt of the joke. Really.
Right. Having never left where I am, I thus never arrive where I'm not.
Exactly, and therefore, there's no packing
Or
involved.
there have never been any fixed positions in space and time for anybody to claim
That which is agitated
that
can't produce stillness.
they were
it's more
living
agitation,
upon
like it says in a
or
famous Zen
existing.
treatise called Faith
Say,
Bible.
oh,
You can't use activity to produce stillness.
yeah, I was there.
That would be activity.
I
Yeah.
remember what's going on. I'm restructuring, remembering, using
So what's one to do?
information,
I don't know, see it.
reforming the information.
Oh, man.
Describe
Yeah.
Thanks.
what was thought to have been happening.
Nice to see you, friend. Thanks for the
Nothing's
talk.
happening.
Thanst for the question.
2x4 from about the
Thank you.
before and after.
And
Nobody.
our Joyce wants to make up for not asking a question last week. She has her hand up. I'm unmuting
you
you.
don't- You have to,
Encouraged
Joyce.
people.
Okay. You're like you could be seen maybe as a questionaholic, so you never make it 2 weeks without a question.
I've been very good. I haven't asked anything. It's a setup anyway. I kind of know what you're going to say, and it's not going to be good. But okay, I'm here on lockdown.
We love you, Joyce. Anyone who was swimming in the same lake as I was in North Carolina. Yeah.
Well, I was swimming recently in the ocean, and I got beat up by waves really bad, and I can't walk now. My lower back is really screwed up.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here, weeks without being able really to move much, and also on lockdown and everything else. So instead of enjoying this time,
hey, are there any positives you have to say?
You were
Sure.
at the cat retreats. That's where I met you.
It feels like you exist. It feels like you're alive.
Go into these
Why not
cabins,
recognize
they don't
that?
eat, and they meditate.
Guess what? You're incessantly on. Not what's going on with the body and the aches and the back and the pinpricks and the numbness.
I mean, I guess I just don't have the will anymore.
Tattered old body of 50, nearly 60 years. We could complain and whinge and bitch and moan all just like that easily. What are you gonna fucking matter? That's
anyway. I'm going back and forth.
That's like a narcissism, self.
But
useless, self-inflicted suffering.
Like it's hopeless to do anything, but if I'm not doing something, I feel like I should because I got the time. I want to do something.
Nobody has the time for anything.
Maybe do something that
time doesn't need to be
so much meaning.
You always tell me to watch Netflix.
Watch Netflix.
See, you want something specific.
Just do something.
See, you want somebody to tell you what you should or should not be doing.
The spiritual way is like a minefield to you, really. Yeah.
That's the.
Yeah.
See, that's the backlash
buried under the ground
of Catholicism, because you didn't mention your Catholic upbringing.
By not doing enough.
Baptist upbringing with this body mind X figure. So.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry, I'm on a call. I'll be right there.
See right there.
Yeah, I mean the good thing in all this is that I'm not motivated anymore, which is what you've been trying to get me to do forever. Well, now it's worked.
Great. Fantastic. Why not let it just go that way? See what happens. What's going to come up? It's old ideas, yeah? Yeah. The why nots and you shouldn't, they're going to show themselves. They're not you. Why not sort of let them come into the light and get reconfigured?
Yeah, the shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Anymore, right?
Yeah, I just wish I had more peace about it. I guess that's it. And I can't make that happen.
Well,
you don't have to make it happen. It's already there. You're just not noticing it.
If it's not you, you won't be hung up on that.
The peace that surpasses all understanding cannot be described. It cannot be put into any kind of conditional duality.
Yeah. So who cares?
That's good. Okay.
It's not of this world. Oh, we could appear in it. We're not. It's not of it. We're not of it.
Where are you living, Joyce? Yeah, where are you living?
Long story, but I'm with the community in Woodside. And I'm in quarantine.
They don't know.
We'll drive down and do an intervention on you.
They don't know that you're in their house.
I'm in their RV. I can't go in their house. I'm being quarantined.
The people, I'm in a house in Woodside. They don't know I'm here. Joyce, don't you ever meet people that are too hard on themselves? And if they saw themselves through your eyes, you would give them a huge amount of permission just to be okay. Yeah, well, we're doing that for you right now. Yeah. Even though that hook is familiar, you don't have to put your head on it. Yeah. It's time to get it off, and life has more things in store for you. Yeah.
Joyce, enjoy a nice latte coffee.
Yeah, the beating of oneself.
Enjoy a coffee.
Yeah.
Or some appetite.
You've been on that cartel. The invitation is to get off long ago. Just get off. It doesn't have to be with a ceremony. Just unceremoniously get off. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you. Really, it's a good reminder. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Hear that message
Joyce, love you.
without facilitating
Nick is up
the
on
hearing.
his phone. I'll unmute him.
2x4 from
He
about with
texted
a
me
point around before and
saying
after that
raise
body
his hand,
mind
so unmuting just
action
now.
figure. Listen without those ears of that body
So
mind
Nick,
action figure.
we're up.
Hear and listen.
Maybe he's
Not
muted.
of the facilitation of
Can you
hearing,
hear me?
Here we
but
go.
beyond that,
Yes,
because
we can
that's
hear you.
what we are. We're that energy field
I got nothing. I think I had
that appears humanly corporeal. How?
way behind. So what the hell was it? Oh, yeah, it was early on and nobody was asking any questions, and I didn't want you to stop early, so I came in here to be your bugaboo and throw some softballs up to keep you around. I like the fire that the logs already lit, and stop trying to reignite it. Just enjoy the warmth. I think that was a new one. So something hit me that
Yeah, it sounded like a new one that hadn't been expressed before by the seed of silence.
Yes, yeah.
And then what came
Beyond
after that,
expressions
yeah,
of the
after
body mind
talk,
action
also
figure,
enjoying
the
warmth,
birth name and birthright,
warmth kind of
referred to.
inherent.
That's fine.
It only ever seemed to get lit.
Birth name's birthright.
It only ever seemed to be enjoyed.
Yeah, I feel like
There's no significance behind
you
them.
know, all the evidence that
No
was
particular birth name or
necessary is
birthright is
already
more
in.
significant than any other.
Yeah, you don't have to wait in the courtroom for the verdict. All your transgressions have been annulled. Move on. Yeah.
Gee, you don't even have to move on. So moving on is going to continue moving on just as the river's rivering.
And we've got Pat that's in chat asking to ask a question.
Pat in chat?
Pat and chat because Cat in the Hat's back.
I'm here in Vancouver, Canada.
This and that from the Cat in the Hat. Dr.
Opportunity
Seuss on the loose.
with all of you. And Paul, I've been listening to you for years since I first heard you on the Buddha at the gas pump interview. And
Oh yeah, Rick.
I really
Rick
appreciate
Archer.
you and your message. And I know you don't use the word healing, but I actually feel like it's a healing message. So I feel like the body is really the sticking point because it's.
Now you see this body mind action figure didn't have any degrees of its birth surname. It didn't have enough degrees after its surname to be worthy enough for Beth. Yeah. How you got through there? I'll never know, Paul. But
never fleeting, never going.
I may not know. But I can kind of guess because it seems as though once a book, a non-duality book or spiritual book is published, and then all that efforting, and then you making all the effort, and then people gather as they do. So that's recognized as though, okay, there's worthiness for Rick Archer to interview. The great Buddha at the gas pump is seemingly on such a high level. They raised the bar so high that the prerequisites for a body mind action to be interviewed on there are great. They're conditional.
Yeah, there's something called the nocebo
And
effect, which is the opposite,
and yet it says
where if someone's
of
believes something negative, their body will
of
manifest
spiritually
that.
inclined people, but it also says just the average.
I feel like,
That's
even though
well
you
above
don't put
average.
emphasis on it, I myself have. I'm not going to say, oh, Paul, I
Whereby
have physical healing, but I do
it's
feel like you're
obvious.
traveling lighter message.
It's so obvious.
Really,
You notice that
translates
if
into
a body mind
somebody,
action
the
figure
body and
hasn't
all its psychosomatic,
published books, it hasn't. If it has not gone out and gathered people in a satsang, and then
it's almost been enslaved,
and then have done this for a number of years,
that it's
then if it hasn't done those
it's not
activities,
equipped to play that role.
then whoever
it's not equipped to be the center
is
of the
running
universe. It's not
that
equipped
bat
to
camp,
be an object that's thought
whoever
about
decides on the interview process,
really
that's
isn't.
something that they
It
don't
doesn't
disclose.
go well. Yeah, and look at
If
what
they
happens.
were to disclose it,
All
I
of the
bet you 9
things
times
that are
out of
being
10 it would
produced
be
by this
a body mind action
overbearing weight
figure
put on the poor body.
that carries
Yeah,
a particular
of
birth
being
name or
you
birthright,
and having all the
and
sins and all the
has published a
omissions
particular
and all
amount of
the
books and has traveled.
all you representing it, and also
So those
in
might be the
process,
prerequisites. If we were to
the
see,
representation of guilt.
if there was to be a chart
separated
or
from
questionnaire,
you know,
all
that
those
which
questions
it
would be
was
the
never
boxes to
separated.
tick.
It's
And if
just
not
an
enough of those boxes are
imaginary
ticked,
feeling that
on
you
the
did
back
something
gap,
to separate from
go
God.
to the gas pump questionnaire,
And the body
if
is used as
there
a
are
form of something to be punished,
interviewees
shit like that. Yeah, it's insane.
I know the body is just innocent.
that would agree to be
Yeah, I
interviewed
would say it's neutral. It doesn't
by
have
the
an opinion.
gotcha, and then
That's for
there
sure.
it is.
I mean, it has
Does it matter now?
preferences. I'd rather sit in a warm seat than a cold seat.
But when you think about how so much
Many other ways.
disease is
Many
like
other
stress related,
innumerable
so
ways
people
to choose from
seemingly
Yeah.
suffer,
in order
and
to express
when
and
you
share
seemingly suffer, it feels like you're
this
fucking
message
suffering,
that
right?
is
Whether it's
that can be construed as a
And
free
And also
assignment.
the constant inflammation, which is agitation. Yes.
right,
The
anxiety,
inflammation of the body is really, I would say, a matter. It's like a picturing of the constant agitation the mental state is in. Really. So it's whipping up. It's like the ember is never let to go out. It's constantly, and so there's inflammation, and of course that's the cause of a lot of. And then again, the antihistamines is causing more problems because of the action of the autoimmune system, all because you've been taken to be something that you're not. It's all crazy. Oh, for sure.
No, I just want to again say, like, I do feel, even though you don't use the word healing, I feel like your message is healing for the body, the action figure, just because there's such a fresh and perspective on it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's an aspect of traveling lighter.
Yeah.
Traveling lighter is the body's left to its own devices, and it has a certain, and a lot of things, well, I'm going to go off on opinions here, but in this world, we give a lot of name to a lot of things. Yeah, we name things, and that gives them a
even the body mind action figure itself. Oh,
there's
only
a lot of overdiagnosis. I mean, there's tons of possibilities.
if only would have had the
that come and go if
opportunity
you weren't
to raise my hand and address that particular part right there.
my view, seriously. So
To address that,
this message
not only
where the
are
value of the
objects
message
and
is
items
here,
named,
not in awareness.
but
Awareness
notice how
doesn't
even
need
the
to be
body
aware of
mind action
itself.
figure
It is, but
in
where
that self-identification
awareness doesn't seem to be
is
aware of,
reinforced
it's valuable.
even
So the message
well
is
before
valuable here. That's
that
why
body mind action figure has
our
had a
whole
chance.
presentation isn't
It doesn't even
enlightenment,
stand a chance
it's
against
traveling lighter.
the innumerable
That's the whole
ways
point. So
that are conditional
what happens is something
and the
is allowed to
conjuring
do for the body what the body
that does
couldn't
not
do.
support.
Yeah, because of the mental fucking
It
preoccupation.
does not support
So
oneness. It does
something,
not support the
when
boundless,
this was seen
timeless.
as me, it was like an
Doesn't
urban
recognize
renewal
that.
project. Yes,
The boundless and
constant
timeless nature of all there is.
investigation, suspicion, surveillance, and when all of
Those
that
antiphona,
surveillance
see,
was lifted,
the
when I saw I
absolute
not back, it was
problem.
the best fucking day for the body, completely.
Right. You don't have to be.
It was like hallelujah that the body.
You don't have to be hyper vigilant,
Hallelujah.
right?
What?
You don't have to be hyper vigilant all the time.
Oh, no. That's just obsession with self. And the idea of a placebo should give you a strong indication that this is dreaming, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, that you can get the same results that a pill would give you with sugar pill because it ain't the pill. Yes?
Exactly.
This is dreaming. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. I don't know how they can step over these obvious indications of the reality of this place? How do they fucking talk around the idea of
the reality of this place is mine.
Yeah, placebo's work.
It's impermanence.
As a higher
That gets
percentage of
overlooked
working than the
for
builder.
that which is
Give me a
believed
break.
to
What
be
does that
permanent
imply?
or conjured.
That this isn't a
Subconscious
real
conscious
place.
self
We're giving it all the meaning
continues
it has.
to conjure all
Why does
ideas
it-
that support
see, these
permanence,
statements are
to
meant
support that which is believed to be
lead up
exclusively
to
so.
afford a
And
lead.
it leaves
It's
out,
not
it
just a
discredits, it
statement.
gives
What
no,
does a
it entertains
placebo
no other
indicate? There's
possibility
something up though,
outside of permanence.
Yeah, in a real
Does not
place, a
understand or
placebo would have
realize
no real
it's beyond their comprehension
Yeah, 'cause
that
it's
the
nothing.
impermanence of
But it
Maya
isn't a real place. This is dreaming. And that which is dreaming, if it believes sufficiently, it can make fucking wine out of water.
yeah, it's the
It can
beliefs
do whatever.
behind that which is conjured.
Because there's no distinction between wine or water. They're both empty.
It's the beliefs behind that which is conjured.
Yeah. By what?
That gives
By
all
some
the meaning
divine thing?
that
Why is
anything
that
will
what
ever
us?
have by entertaining
We're
thoughts
never
that are
going
thought to
observe
be
that we're dreaming. We're in
owned
the
and claimed
activity
and
of
possessed 2x4 from
There's
about
no
with upon
break
around before and
until
after
this thing
that
ends,
which
seemingly, as
believes
the body.
it is
You'll
permanent
be-
and is
there's not a
permanently so,
moment you're not
and that it had a
dreaming.
beginning when it was born and that it will have an end when it dies.
It's so.
What is
it's
the
such
Alpha
a
and Omega? What is
thing
Brahman?
about
What
being, it doesn't
is
exist. It's not sweating.
what is?
There's no effort.
What
in
is
it.
and what is not empty
It's
fullness?
not
What
trying
is
to dream. It's
both
dreaming.
real and unreal,
It's
observable and
imagining.
unobservable,
It's
knowable and
projecting.
unknowable, and infinite.
Yeah. And then it's sitting here and watching.
That which is everything and nothing, and
I
separately
say to
so and not
people,
so,
if we were at the movies
as
together
infinitum.
and something went wrong with the movie, we wouldn't expect the projectionist to come down with a ladder and prop it against the screen and try to fix the picture. We'd be saying, fix the projector, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
You know, fix the projector.
Or maybe when you take the break in the movie, you'll see you're the movie watching a movie. It's true. Yeah. There's a great one that Ramana would say. He said, you know, a lot of people get to this point. They're sitting in a theater and they're seeing the unreality of everything. But there's an assumed reality given to them, sitting in the theater. The dreaming is, you're always in the dreaming.
In the act of the
You
dreamings,
appearing as the dreamt.
just as a river is
outside
rivering.
Yes?
So the body mind, using that euphemism, that analogy, using that analogy loosely, the river, the body of water is considered a river, is likened to the body mind projection. As the river is rivering and the activity of the rivering flowing, the flow of the river is the same as, or similarly so, as the body mind expresses and projects. A humanly corporeal, temporally temporary, local quality of consciousness energy form.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes, thank you, honey. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you both. That was like a breath of fresh air to the idea of healing. Anybody else want to raise their hand?
We can go soon, eh?
See no other hands.
Mary, easy, Mary.
Yeah, suppose so. It's
Remember,
almost coming up
let's
on
not take
2
ourselves
hours. So
too seriously.
the invitations were released.
All right, good. Let me see her. Hey, honey, what's Bana? Bonnie? Yes? Let's see you. Honey.
See, that's the quandary. The time zone.
Good, good. I just
The
want
time
to say hello to
zone
everyone.
that a body
I think
mind
we're
action
gonna
figure
end up,
finds
unless
itself
there's
upon
another
on this
question.
planet.
Kathy down here, nice to see you. Kathy.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. George, nice to see you. Nico, I don't want to disturb you. You look very happy. Just chill out, chill out.
All right. Well, I went onto Facebook a while ago and I posted an invite to this Zoom meeting, just like likened to visiting a fisherman visiting a lake and just not familiar where the best spots to fish are, so to speak. And so, yeah. Much more planning is definitely in demand here. But at least the information is released. That's the main thing. The information is released. It's out there. It's available. But as the saying goes, all in good time. Everything will apparently appear to happen all in good time. But it'll be happenings that will happen not 2 by 4 from about, with, upon, around, before, after anybody in particular, but just how everything will continue to appear just as it always has, always will, in no particular order, no particular structure, order, or form. No, there's rabbit. Fuck. No, it's your bunny. Huh, little face. Rabbit's joining. Rabbit's joining. Ha ha! My rabbit. Hello. Hello, rabbit. Bob?
Huh?
No, it's your bunny. Bob, little face.
Gate crashing party.
I can make you a host, rabbit.
No.
Yeah, I can. You could be my host.
No wonder I've got to do some more cleaning.
That way I could go wee. You'd be my host while I'm away. Don't worry, there's nobody here right now. I just
Go for wee then.
all I've done, I just experimented with there's a bunny clock behind you on the wall. Why? Why is there a bunny clock?
I wonder where all my Buddha heads are gone.
No, they're not your Buddha heads, they're mine. They're my Buddha heads.
Stole them.
They're my butt up heads.
Not butt up heads. Buddha.
Well, it sounds like Buddha when you say Buddha. It's actually pronounced Buddha with a oo. Buddha.
Buddha.
No, it's not butt up. It's
Buddha.
No. Can you see me all right? Yeah.
Huh?
I've just been experimenting to see what it's like to host a room. Because your brother was hosting, right? He was hosting yesterday. Because he's the one that created it, didn't he? So that everybody else could join. Yeah?
Who?
Your brother. He created and set it up. He was the host.
Well, his room, yeah. You create your own individual rooms, don't you?
Yeah, but there's a lot more involved. Remember, you came here to try to help me, but now I figured out a hell of a lot more that I didn't know yesterday about Zoom. So it just takes me some time to kind of analyze it and look into all the little, bells and whistles, so to speak. Then I can figure out how to use it.
There's nothing wrong with your bells and whistles.
Bells and whistles.
You're not blushing.
No, it's your bunny. I never blush, little face. No, I don't.
I'm having to throw the ballie for the stupid butt up.
Well, of course, nothing changes with him.
Well, it's not a ballie, it's a ropey.
It's a sad state of that ropey. It's all shredded. Shredded ropey. Very used and abused like a rag doll.
Or like my honey.
Nah, your honey is not. It's nowhere near used and abused enough, Rabbit. It's not. It needs more abuse. It's not enough. The butt probably knows. The butt probably knows.
You really think so?
Having naughty thoughts. Daddy's having naughty thoughts. He's picking up on them.
Yeah, he is. Well, I'm going to go and finish the housework.
Yeah, thank you for showing up. So now I understand and know what to expect, what to look for whenever somebody wants to jump in.
Yeah, you have to accept them in the room, don't you, or something?
No, did you get that? Did you capture the number that was on that the invite that I posted, right?
Yeah.
I think what's happening today is the time zone, because it's still too early in the morning over in the U.S. It's 6 hours.
And it's a bank holiday. People are probably doing things. Well, it's not in the U.S. then, no.
No, in the U.S. it's probably like what 8 in the morning, something like that. I think.
Oh, it's a bit early, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
People are at work.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So our 2 o'clock would be 5 or 6 hours, I think, on certain time zones going back. So if we go back 5 or 6, I think it hits Central Time. You know what I need to do next?
You need to do it later at night.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a chart. For all 4 time zones. That way, whenever somebody shows up out of random, just randomly, then I could put their name based on which time zone they're calling from.
Well, where apart from Facebook are you advertising that you're doing a meeting?
It's all those countries that you saw listed on that invite that I posted a while ago. When I posted that posting, if you were to scroll down, you'll see all the countries I included. And those countries are the ones that follow this message that the guy that you say sounds like when he laughs like Elmer Fudd, that's Paul Hederman.
Oh, right,
yeah. I was in his Zoom chat with 50 other people. So I got my first exposure yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So by doing this, then I could become known, because not even the IT tech guy that organizes the Zoom for Paul, he was the only one that kind of looked at my website, because I was always responding to all of the past YouTube presentations that were around. This Zoom is something fairly new that Paul Hederman decided to go along with, because he ran into this guy that knows the Zoom program very well, and he's running it on behalf of Paul. So he showed Paul how to host and go in there, because Paul is not, internet savvy at all. I mean, he's an ex-alcoholic. That's his tribe. That's where he comes from. After about, I think he said 28 to 30 years of sobriety. And that's what he does in California, in LA. He started out that way. He started out working these AA programs, Alcohol Anonymous and the 12 steps. And it wasn't until, in the background, he already had a history of looking into the weird shit, spirituality, metaphysics, things like that.
Weird shit.
Yeah, but then at the same time, he was struggling with alcohol way back then. And Paul is in his 70s. So he's kind of a generation, that's ahead of ours by maybe a decade or so.
Yeah.
Because I'm approaching almost 60, and he's in his 70s. So there's that 10-year gap. So in a way, I'm kind of following in, so to speak, the footsteps of when he began with his website, and he has a website called ZenBitchSlap.com.
What?
ZenBitchSlap. ZenBitchSlap.com. Can you imagine a lot of the opinions of spiritual people is similar to how Pat might be offended if we were to put things on Facebook as we have been. And it's similar, it's looked upon similarly in India, because Zen is seriously followed, whereby they've had spiritual leaders and gurus in India that are revered as, you know, they're looked upon as special people, so to speak, just as the Pope kind of has that image, yeah, like that. And so when he came up with ZenBitchSlap.com, it was too late. He already had the website established for almost 15 years, so now he can't remove it. But when he explains how he came up with it, a Zen bitch slap means one hand clapping. Now, I know it doesn't make sense because you need two hands to produce a clap, right? But you see, here's where it gets kind of weird shittish. It kind of gets Zenified or spiritualified. I'm not sure, whatever word you want to come up with. But
Shitified.
Well, yeah, we're shitfied or whatever you want to say. But that is kind of what we're involved with.
Noodle bending-fied.
Well, yeah, but what we're really involved with here is taking these ancient texts from the Upanishads and the Gita, which was established in India thousands of years ago, and then taking a direct translation from the Sanskrit, well, much more ancient language in English, but a direct translation from the Sanskrit to the English, and then everything that's in those books that were written thousands of years ago is being presented using the English language, which took a lot of exhaustive. The very first editions of that were with that book that I came across back in the 80s. These right here, this guy right here was, he came up with the 1970s. He was the very first author, and he was a monk, of course. You can see his garb, you know, he has the robe, and he followed all the, you know, the ancient traditions. But what he did was something remarkable. Into 72 different languages. He did it himself. He translated all of the little glyphs of the Sanskrit of the entire library of the Gitas, and he took the Upanishads too, 108 of them. It's all right. Anyway, I haven't had an opportunity to have a one-to-one chat and discussion with Paul himself, but at least I'm getting closer now, where I had a pretty good conversation after the presentation was recorded, because when it's recorded, you have 50 other people and a lot of other people raising their hand to talk. Similar to what we had last night, you know, with our Zoom presentation, but it was only a few of us, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
But I was in a room with 50 other people, you know, 50, 60 other people. And so I didn't have much of an opportunity to really talk directly with Paul. I didn't have a chance to. But I did after the recording, because I got to talk to Mike. Now, Mike is the IT guy that Paul uses for his Zoom hosted presentations and things like that. So I'm getting a little closer now. I was wondering which avenue can I find that's best suited with what I'm familiar with. So, I mean, there are innumerable approaches to the weird shit that's out there in the world. I mean, take your pick. There's so many to choose from. And to just narrow it down to something that seems to be familiar to what you're familiar with. You know what I mean? It's kind of like this. It's very similar to how Lottie could recognize the difference between somebody that Lottie didn't trust, so she barked at them at the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lottie and dogs, you know, canines have that ability to somehow be able to intuitively somehow know or sense. They somehow sense the intent of that person that's standing in front of them. as you well know, of course, I'll never forget when you told me about Steve's dad, and Lottie went crazy. But then when Lottie was around your dad, wagging the tail. So this is what I'm trying to say. It's very difficult to try and reach others that have that same ability, so to speak. You know, who can you trust when you're going online? You don't know. These are all strangers. You don't know who you're connecting with. You really don't know until you carefully, you know what I mean? You carefully approach, and after a while, then you gain the trust of someone else that's even just an acquaintance. It's the same as at work. You know, it's the same that you experience at Asta. You go to work and you know the people not to even say good morning to, you know what I mean? And the other ones, you know, just ignore them, and you have your acquaintances because you know what to expect. You've worked with them for so many years, so you're familiar with their ways, the way they are, right? So all of that takes so much time. It takes so much time, and it takes a lot of time to build that kind of trust with anybody, really. So if you're going to have a friend, you know, if you're going to make a friend from an acquaintance, well, it takes time to establish that, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, sure. It takes time to build a friendship. It's very similar to look at you and
Shirley.
Shirley, yeah, look at you, Shirley. You're very familiar with each other's ways. I mean, you went to school together, and not, you know, most of the time when we went to school, when we were that young, we had to go to school. You know, that was something we had to do, and we spent more hours in school than we did at home. So whoever the friend was, whatever friendships you made and established, and then you came up with an exclusive one as Shirley. So Shirley became one of your best friends. Now, of course, everybody has that choice. Everyone can have one very special friend, or maybe a few special friends. But it's a lot easier just to have one instead of trying to cater to more than one. You know what I mean? Because we can't spend time with everyone we may want to. That was a dilemma I found myself in, because I got along with so many different personality types that I just didn't have the time to build those kind of friendships, even when I was going to school back then. So the same kind of crosses over into your adult life when, now that we have the world open up to us through these mediums now, where we got video, it's very easy to use. We have the equipment, all the tools are before us. Now it's just a matter of interacting. But that interaction, there must be a careful approach, and we need to be reasonable about it. You know, we can't just chat up just anybody. We have to know, we have to be familiar with that person. I mean, what interests do they have? How many years have they been at this particular interest when it comes to the weird shit? So in a sense, I was already prepared, even without knowing it, by seeking out so much weird shit, so many different subjects, so many different types of subjects and approaches, you know, to spirituality, metaphysics. I mean, there are innumerable examples of that. And so by studying them throughout the 1990s, now I'm at a point of where I can nearly answer anybody's question that pertains to the basis of all the weird shit. There is a base. There's a baseline. There is a baseline, and it's called non-duality. It's called Advaita Vedanta, and this is very ancient. And so I got it. Advaita Vedanta. Yeah, it sort of sounds. It could sound the same. Yeah, but I remember picking up this book the first time I picked it up and started reading it. This was in the 1980s, especially when I had plenty of time when I was recuperating from my back surgery, right? So this was 1986 when I had my back surgery, right? So I had a whole year, 6 months it took to at least be able to walk, you know, or discover that I was going to walk. before I had the back surgery, the surgeon told me, he says, don't be too alarmed, but there's a 50-50 chance you'll either recover from this or a 50-50 chance that you may never walk again. So I was thinking to myself, man, I hope it's the one where I can be able to walk again. So you can imagine in the back of my mind, the way I was feeling, undergoing the knife, you know, with such a major surgery like that, right in the back. So anybody looks at me, baby, and I'm able to ride a bike and walk about like I do, they have no idea that I ever had back surgery. There's a lot of people that had back surgeries, they at least have some tinges or some effects that they still have to take painkillers. You know, not as severe as of course with Phil's, you know, foot that won't stop growing, not like that, but kind of on another level. Maybe about 10 levels below that, but you know, I don't even have a tinge. That's how good that surgeon was, which is very surprising, because I shouldn't have recovered that well, but that's how good he was on the procedure that he did on my back. So I'm very, very grateful to a man that I hardly even knew. I really didn't know him. And yet, he changed my life to that degree, Rabbit, for the better, though. So, you know, a lot of us don't really think about it in terms of, you know, if there was a successful surgery done, they should take stock and realize, look, that physician, that surgeon that worked on your, you know, whatever you had, an ailment, like my back surgery was done, which is major. They don't realize how much appreciation should be expressed. In other words, I never had the opportunity to thank him, because I didn't know. First of all, I didn't know where he lived, and he was a specialist, and he wasn't like House. You know how House did the internship, and every now and then he'd show up at a hospital. No, he was even outside of that. He had his own practice, but whenever a hospital called to use his service, well, there he was. But anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that this is why it's taken so long to find the right combination of connections to make, to go online, to find just the right combinations of people to contact. And so far, it appears to be this particular group, Paul Hitterman's.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul Hitterman, and it's expanding. Of course, as you can imagine, when he first started out with his Zen Bitch Slap, it was just a website. And then, 10 years ago, when YouTube began to develop, at the same time, I was learning how to use YouTube and then figure out how to make videos through YouTube. Well, the presentations that were recorded were by other people that knew how to do the same, but they were in a close proximity to Paul, where he lived in Los Angeles, in LA, and of all places, around the Redondo Beach area where I was born, Torrance.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, that's where he lives. And he even had one of the presentations recorded right there in Redondo Beach. So I kind of put some commentary on that particular one back then. But he's been all over the world. He's even been here in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, he's been here in the UK. Really, he's been to Nottingham. He was at Devon. That's south, right?
Yeah, that ain't far from Cornwall.
Yeah, he was there too. And he went to Ireland, Dublin, been to Scotland, been to Ireland, been to Netherlands, Germany, Australia. So he's had the means to travel because he started out, gradually like this, and then build up a following, and then more people began to hear what he had to say, and they gravitated towards it. And that's kind of how, that's not my intention. I'm not thinking in terms of I want to be famous. I'm not thinking that way, Rabbit. I'm not thinking that I want to be famous. It's just an interest. And so, I've always been the type of person that doesn't just haphazardly go after something, you know, that I'm interested in, I go all out. I mean, I really go all out. You know very well that, and I'm very persistent when it comes to something that I'm really interested in. I'm curious, and it stems from that same curiosity that I had when I was a kid. You know, I was a little kid, fascinated about the world and nature and all that sort of thing, especially with the little ants. How can the little insects know? They're so tiny, have such a tiny brain. How do they know to do what they do? And each different groups of ants have a different task to perform, different job, and that's just on that tiny scale. So just consider that. Think about how much more that we can do as human beings, and we're much greater types of living people. You know, we're living beings, and we have these capacities of ours to be able to conjure up and think about so many ideas that are innumerable ideas to come up with. There's no other living thing that can do that, other than maybe the ones that are closest as far as brain capacity is the dolphin, right? I think it's the dolphin is one of them. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The dolphin seems to have a brain kind of similar to a person's brain, the humans. And what is the other one? I think you told me the cousins to the human race, human species, which of course are the apes, and the chimpanzee. Yeah, the apes and chimpanzees, and that's one of the only other animals that enjoy sex. It actually really enjoys
the orangutan. Actually.
Orangutan. That's it. Yeah. And so to enjoy something like that is as close to a human trait as you can get. We don't see that in any of the other animal kingdoms, do we? We don't see that in any of the other animal species, which is really interesting to look at that. So anyway, thank you, Rabbit. Thank you for popping in here. It's really helping me figure out how to maneuver the program and know what to do next. So baby steps, and everything. So that's what I'm doing. Just gradually.
Okay.
Okay, Rabbit.
I'm going to go then and get on with what I've got to do.
Okay, little face. Thank you for stopping by, Rabbit.
In a bit.
Okay.
Bye.
Oh, by the way.
What?
By the way, still there? Okay.
Yeah?
Still there. I recorded all this.
I saw it recorded up in the corner.
Oh, you knew? Okay, well, then I guess you're all right with it.
Okay.
All right, bye, Bonnie.
Bye.
Bye. Your audio's still on, but your video's off.
Oh, all right, 1 minute.
I don't think you signed out yet. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're signed out now, Rabbit. Yeah, you're signed out. Yeah, that was this Body Mind Action Figures partner, Bev. And this Body Mind Action Figure has been married to that Body Mind Action Figure since 2007, when I was living in San Antonio, Texas. And we were communicating through, just casually, through a Pal Talk chat program. In Pal Talk, there is the usual platform of a chat program that has various rooms. You can create and be a host of various rooms. Well, we went into the 30s and 40s room because we were in our 40s naturally. So we went in there and we chatting up various people, and just imagine and think about the ratio. Think about the odds. Think about the odds. Say they're equivalent to winning at a particular game in a casino, such as 21 or Texas Hold Up or the I'm not so familiar. I've never really been into gambling, so I'm not that familiar with proper term for some of these games. It would come back to me. I know the one about the red and black, and the ball lands on it, and you spin, and there's numbers, and you spin this wheel. Can't think of it right now. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and close. I'm going to close this particular recording. Now, this is the very first day that I actually signed up on Zoom to be the host of a maximum of 100 people. So that's the first step. So we'll see how it goes as far as participation. And the name of the room, of course, I'll leave it there, and every now and then I'll post on Facebook. I'll post the room number, and should be the same one each time. But with so many thousands of people that visit YouTube and who happen to be either on their various times, the odds of gathering a group, a particular group of people, and then it takes time. It's going to take quite a bit of time to gradually build an audience. And that's not the intent here, to build an audience, but you see all the other neo-Advaitins and the ones that have been prominent. They are prominent because they were diligent and they were persistent at what they were doing. So at some point well, first of all, a majority of them that are in the positions that they're in now, and their popularity stems from their credentials, their academic stance, or how intellectually adroit they were in becoming book learned to that extent whereby they gathered degrees, doctor's degree, master's degrees, and they were fortunate enough to have successfully completed those studies and the degrees, and there's how they established their credibility. And then they began to publish books. And as they did that in society, that is something that's most predominantly recognized. Just as in Buddha and the gas pump, there appears to be prerequisites in order to be not necessarily worthy, but to have established with the general public, making a name for oneself, so to speak, or becoming almost likened to a household name whenever a name is mentioned, such as Eckhart Tolle. Now, that's a unique name, Eckhart Tolle. And so whenever a person may say that, I say, oh, that sounds familiar. And those that know about Eckhart Tolle say, oh, yeah, I'm familiar with his works. I bought his books, that kind of thing. But certainly there had to have been a time when Eckhart Tolle wasn't even known. When he was a kid, especially when he was a kid just going to school. Not quite to the level of an Einstein, but when Einstein, the way he became popular and famous was for these academic the astrophysical equations, and he was involved with physics and relativity, and he came up, of course, with such a famous E equals MC squared, and see, most people are familiar with that. Now, this body one actually figures nowhere near that level of popularity. I wouldn't say popularity, but exposure to society, societal structure. So it's really interesting to notice how particular body minds had built a following, not necessarily following, but have made a name for themselves But here's what's funny about that analogy. To make a name for oneself, now just by expressing it in a natural way, perhaps could be construed as, well, a body mind action figure just going about a life that they believe is their own, so they identified with that, and circumstances turned out as they did, and their name, although in a lot of times those so-called famous people in society had changed their name to a pen name, a pseudonym, or a different name other than the birth name they were given. So insofar as the manner by which this particular body mind is expressed as what is termed or titled, well, like an entitlement, or referred to as the Neo-Advaitin. So the Neo-Advaitin takes the message of non-duality from the original Sanskrit versions of the Advaita Vedanta, and actually any of the 108 Upanishads. So any of the 108 Upanishads is being expressed through the English language, either knowest or unbeknowest, either recognized, realized, or not. Because eventually, though, although it comes back around full circle anyway, that everything throughout the infinite universe apparently appears to be cycling. And in these cycles, the analogy of time that apparently appears to be moments that go from of measured time, of course, as we refer to it, as seconds to minutes, minutes to hours, hours to days, days to weeks, weeks to months, and months to years, and years to decades, and so on. So this, however it was conjured and measured and kept track of, those ideas that have always been seemingly familiar, and then taking the template of a societal structure and the idea that there are a particular countenance, 8 billion or so, but a cycling type of a countenance, give or take, give or take, give or take, always give and take, but never remaining on the same exact number of body mind action figures that are born. So notice those variances. So the variances are innumerable. The countenance is immeasurable. And since that is the case, that apparently appears to be one of the innumerable examples of what? Of the infinitudinal complexification of all that is. All that is not only probable, possible, but all that has always already been, and that which has yet to be conjured. That which has yet to be conjured is still possible and probable, but has yet to be approached or encountered seemingly that way, as though there is a time continuum, and as though there's some type of an evolutionary process going on. Get the Hoover going on up there. I could close the door, but then the dilemma is that if I close the door, then I will not get this current of airflow by opening the windows, and it'll be too hot in here. Well, I could also, of course, use the fan. Now, air conditioning is not very commonly used, or the homes that were built back in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s here in the United Kingdom. They mainly had fireplaces for the winter. A proper type fireplace with a chimney and the whole full appearance of a, as you could say, call it an authentic chimney. But no air conditioning units, of course. There weren't no air conditioning units that were added to homes that were built. They mainly focused and concentrated on, of course, the radiators, the heaters, concentrated on the heating system, because a majority of time here in the United Kingdom, it's a winter can last longer than the spring and summertime. So naturally, you want to cater more to constructing and building homes that are analogous, conducive to the environments that they're built upon. So, without any, well, let me go ahead and close that door. Hoover's getting closer and it's getting louder. I was about to say, these presentations are difficult insofar that there's no questioner. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's the way it is. Simply the way it is. When there's the appearance of more than just one human corporeal body-mind action figure, it's by itself. What does it do to entertain itself? Well, it goes on to Netflix, sees what type of movies are available, it looks at the trailer, and does that. Yeah. Although it's not another appearance of an actual body-mind action figure, it's not another person that appears to be in front of them, even in these scenarios whereby we use Zoom to communicate. These video conferencing types of programs that are becoming more popular, and they're becoming more popular because they're more readily available. And as the technology has increased, and there's other platforms and other companies that are providing this type of software or streaming software, and then we have YouTube, where it's open-ended and open to the public. And if you have the right equipment, and you have a monitor, and you have the right amount of executable files, and the bandwidth is enough to carry these various programs, and there has to be quite a bit of RAM available on a computer, on a desktop especially. That's the optimum use of these type of video conferencing programs such as Zoom. Zoom being one of them, and then of course one of the first was Skype, and then of course YouTube, and then later on the Facebook design of a video conferencing type of program was made available, but it doesn't focus on that. It, of course, is on a more broad perspective, using the multifaceted or multi-featured the platforms that are out there. So with Zoom, this is the first day. It is known as VE Day. I think it was the end of World War II. And it's on the 8th of May. So May the 8th is observed as VE Day. Veterans or Victory End, or I really didn't look into it to that degree to see what entitlements they gave the day, but as far as I know, it was the end of World War II. And so it's recognized as VE Day. Of course, you have Veterans Day. There's all these other holidays that are recognized in various countries, but here in the UK, the holidays are recognized based on the major historical accounts that have occurred throughout history. Well, what about history? Why don't they have their say? Well, see, the body mind action figure can use the mind in so many ways to where if it's not entertained to a certain degree, it's going to try and conjure something else. But it feels as though it's bored if it's not doing something. And then on top of that, not just doing something, or feels as though the body mind wants to feel as though it's doing something worthwhile. So why does it have to be an activity that needs to be conditional to that extent? Whereby, I'm kind of bored. I would like to do something. So maybe I'll go online and play a game of chess, virtual chess, with somebody. And then there's all these different chess programs. And so then if one is interested in that, then they need to sift through all the available chess programs that are available on Facebook and other places on the internet. The vastness of availability and the seemingly innumerable programs to become involved with, there's so much choice. In other words, it is as though there's an overabundance of choice. So how can any body mind action figure find themselves to be bored? It shouldn't. There should not be a sense or feeling of boredom. And what are you bored of? What is any body mind action figure bored of when they say they're bored? So there's so many activities. Read a book, take a nap, choose from one of the innumerable channels on YouTube, or go into Netflix and look at all the movies. Majority of the best movies I've already seen, and those body mind action figures that are quite prevalent at movie watching. If you're anything like this body mind action figure that's already seen what are considered some of the best movies of all time that are available out there, even the mediocre ones where you have so-called second-hand actors or B actors, secondary type actors that are not so popular. So getting back to popularity, that's kind of how we're starting the discussion here. So to create a discussion, there needs to be a narrator and a reader, a transmitter and a receiver, yeah? Or else the body mind action figure is going to have to conjure subjects to talk about. So a conversation or a discussion between one body mind action figure and another begins to take on a form or a shape out of nowhere, from nothing, out of nowhere, and then appear, bring it into the impermanence of Maya, and then now there's something to do. Feedback, bouncing ideas off of one another on a feedback loop. So conversation has a life of its own, depending upon the language that is spoken between two body mind action figures. So there's the first step. How familiar is a body mind action figure with a particular language? Well, of course, it would be what is construed as a native language or first language. And a second, third, or fourth language would be one that was learned outside of the language that a body mind action figure had become familiar with during its inception and exposure to what is referred to as, of course, a societal structure. The world is seemingly out there, and then here I am in here. It feels as though there's some type of sensation that I'm in something. But when I look at a mirror and my reflection in the mirror, and I see this body, and I've always self-identified with it to say that well, how did it first begin? And what amount of time did that process begin? Seemingly so. Apparently, there apparently appeared to be some type of process. So there's a body mind that was doing this after about a duration in space and time, a lapse of about 15, 18 months, something like that, almost the first 2 years, where the baby was, the body mind, what this referred to when it comes to names and references, a body mind baby was doing this and had no self-sentience or no self-identification with it. So it had yet to develop that. It had help. It had assistance, which was construed as assistance. Because if a little baby body mind, it has no self-identification, and it's not, well, there's no particular name that it's aware of. It doesn't have a name 2x4 from, about, with, upon, around, before, and after itself. That will be based on the parental figures, of course, that are raising that particular baby body mind action figure. So it's a baby body mind action figure. First 2 years starts doing that. There's people around maybe caring for the baby, or else it might even turn out to be the tale of the like a Jungle Book, where the little boy was raised by wolves. Regardless if it's fictional, it's made up, or nonfiction. And even the nonfiction is conjured as well, but not quite as strongly conjured as fictitious material or information that's conjured. But even the nonfiction is considered factual information. The academia, historical books, science, the hard sciences, and the soft sciences, and any type of sciences, astronomy, astrology. Well, astrology is even more ancient. Well, of course, astronomy is a cousin to astrology, as astrology is a cousin to astronomy. No, they would be closer related than that distinction. Or one could say astronomy and astrology. Astrology is like the father, and astronomy is kind of like the child. It could be a son or a daughter of the father, astrology. Saying that because astrology is more ancient than astronomy. Astrology is the study of well, it was taken from the idea of all the Greek and Roman gods that were mentioned, gods and goddesses, deities, a deified universe, which was philosophized. Sure, it was. Philosophies were conjured. Of course they were. Everything, absolutely anything that's expressed 2x4 from, about, with, upon, around, before, and after an action figure, a human corporeal form, a local quality of consciousness energy form that's appearing visibly observable in mirrors for an indeterminate duration in space and time, and not of space and time. And that quote is used, which is analogous to being in the world but not of the world. So borrowing all the various what are referred to as spiritual teachings, quote, spiritual teachings, end quote, from the deified human corporeal body minds that were deified, such as the Christed one, and then there's Muhammad, Islamics and Muslims, and it's referring to Allah, and then you go to these other spiritual teachings. But what's really interesting is that it seems as though, it appears as though, seemingly so, apparently appearing, that there are particular body mind action figures that seemingly become gravitated towards a particular series of so-called spiritual teachings. And some of the most ancient ones that are looked into and then familiarized 2x4 from about with upon around before and after that which is looking into such subjects of and subjectivity and objectivity. Sure, it is taking these beliefs and then these names for gods and goddesses, a deification, deifying forces in nature, and then giving them a label, categorizing. The pagans and the Celtics and there's just so many. The Wiccans, studied nature. What do they refer to? The hierarchy of nature, different hidden kingdoms. They're referred to as, trying to remember that word that was used. The mythos, avatars. There it is, archetypes. The archetypes of deified characters that were conjured through philosophical thought and thinking, and there's the theosophical, taking some religious connotations and blending them with metaphysics, such as Madame Blavatsky. See, so this body-mind action figure is just simply going off on all these different tangents. Why? It's not engaged. See, it's apparently appearing to be by itself. It's a host. It has this room. Neo-Advaitins and the Conjured Self. And this is the very first day of a broadcast. And so this host, this body mind action figure, is taking the program, taking Zoom, and becoming familiar how to use it. The same way it did with video production in YouTube. Creating a YouTube channel and then recording a series of recordings and then placing them on that channel on YouTube. Now the next step that this particular body mind action figure is deciding to embark upon is to go live, begin streaming the material. The website was set up back in 1999 when there was the GeoCities platform. The tail end of the website would not have been recognized when it was used in that particular domain. It's the website that I put together now and that becomes the webmaster of is Angelfire, the Angelfire domain, which is the current manifestation of that particular website. And it's been undergoing transitions, but it's now stabilized with the Advaita Vedanta, all things non-dualism, non-duality, the Upanishads and the Gitas, that type of information, focusing and narrowing it down to that, which apparently appears to be the very foundation of spiritual ideas, spiritual concepts, anything that's conjured appears to be going hand in hand. Don't really see that or witness that with any other type of religious spiritual teachings. There of course are distinctions between that which is considered religious, spiritual but not religious, and then you have all these other categories: agnostics, your atheists, all your different theists, different types of theists, all the denominations of the various fundamental religions, the Baptist, Catholics, Protestants, Seventh-day Adventists, Mormons, and the list goes on and on, all the different denominations of different branches of Catholicism. A lot of it stems from Catholicism and Judaism and all those other isms. Well, now here's another ism, but it seems to be one of the most ancient isms of them all, which is non-dualism. So non-dualism apparently appears to be the foundation of all other isms that followed. Was there a predecessor to the Upanishads, Advaitins, and the Gitas? There may have been a predecessor, but it's too far back. Compiling and accessing the information that was is just so far-fetched with the Egyptians and the hieroglyphics and the Mayans. Well, there are those that have studied the Mayan glyphs and those that studied the Egyptian glyphs. And with the Egyptians, it appears to be a predominant theme with the Egyptians was the afterlife and preparing the body for what's referred to as the journey into the Bardo. And then there's a Tibetan book of the living and the dying that refers to other levels of beingness, allegedly, other kingdoms, heavens and hells, far more subtle realities, paradigm shifts, other dimensions. And there are those of the contention, or some body minds that have gone in that direction with their thinking, which what they refer to as their thinking is, it's not their own possessed thoughts that they conjured up and said, okay, I thought about this and nobody else on the planet throughout the earth has ever thought of the thought that I'm considering. No, not like that. Just simply, where do these thoughts come from? And then who claims them? See? So then you get groups of people that gradually get together and they seek out other body mind action figures that happen to have a close to similar stance or approach to a particular subject of study. Subject, object. Of course, subjectivity, objectivity has nothing to do with Advaita Vedanta. Yeah, when we start referring to that, of course not. But absolutely all of it is conjured anyway. So under what umbrella is anything conjured underneath? No umbrella, really. Because all manifestation that apparently appears to be conjured is Maya, which is impermanence. In other words, it's the infinitudinal complexification or infinity that's timeless, boundless, and beyond time, beyond space and time, that is unknowable. Nobody could ever amass the knowledge that it would take to know all about Brahman and all about the absolute, that is both real and unreal, everything and nothing that is inseparably so and not so ad infinitum. No, there is nobody that can claim that, because there is no separation, one without a second. There's no separation in anything. Just as there's no separation of light and darkness. It could be stated that there could be the absence of light. What is apparently appearing to be left with the absence of light? Darkness. But even in darkness, it's apparently appearing as though there's darkness, there's still a hue of a visible light spectrum. Although it apparently appears to be invisible, there's still energetic movements that are constantly cycling on innumerable frequencies of resonance. And the science of realization, self-realization, and beingness, being, not the knowing and not the doing, but the being. There is far more that is unknowable with that which is referred to as beingness. Oh, there's a limited amount of knowledge and information that can be apprehended. 2x4 from, about, with, upon, around, before, and after that which is a body-mind complex action figure that's simply temporarily manifesting a human corporeal form. But that's temporally temporary, not in space and time, because it's not of space and time, but it's both. It's temporarily, temporarily, for an indeterminate duration in space and time appearing. They're appearances of human corporeal forms, but those are only temporary. Apparently seemingly so. Then there's that which is not apparently seemingly so. So there's that which is so and not so. So you see, it's both. And there is the beautiful complexity of paradox, the paradoxical expressions are innumerable ones, just as there are innumerable countenance of everything else that's immeasurable light, immeasurable countenance of bacteria, immeasurable countenance of grains of sand on beaches throughout the earth, and not just the beaches, but also other parts. But when we refer to sand, that type of soil, those type of minerals, is sand a mineral or crystallized form? So if we're going to get really specific, if we are to express in a very specific way, there are innumerable ways to express. So the body, mind, action figure takes its pick. Nearly, how much time gone by? Almost 3 hours, 2 hours and 51 minutes. And the only other person that responded, of course, is my partner. This body, mind, action figure as a partner I've been living with for, well, it's nearly 12 years now, since 2010, here in Peterborough, United Kingdom, in case you're wondering. The odd chance of somebody, my action figure, might stumble across this recording and kind of look into it and see, oh, okay. You had a few things to say. Do they matter? No. Do they matter to anybody? No. Is there any meaning, reason, purpose behind anything that's expressed? 2x4 from, about, with, upon, around, before, and after, that which considers itself to be a separate individual person? No, it's not. It's not that way. Never was that way. It was only conjured. So that's the theme. So Neo-Advaitins, just another category entitlement to that which is considered modern. Neo, modern. Advaitin, taking the original Upanishads, 108 Upanishads and the Gitas, that information there, and converting that original tongue that was spoken to Sanskrit, the Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, the divine, in this body, mind, action figure, acknowledges and recognizes the divine in your body, mind, action figure, okay, so to speak. Anyway, we'll leave it at that for now. Plenty of information to kind of peruse there. Look at the go to the YouTube channel that I have under the same first name of Richard Ty Trevino, although the middle name is Ty. It's added later on. But what's in the birth name? See, that's kind of how we started this conversation earlier. We're referring to what's in a name of a body, mind, action figure. Is there any significance to it? There's only significance whenever significance is applied. How are applications of significance applied? 2x4 from, about, with, upon, around, before, and after a body, mind, action figure appearance. How is that condoned? How is that witnessed? How is that observed? How is that perceived? One of innumerable ways. No meaning, reason, purpose behind it, but yet it only apparently appears to have some particular patterning or a seemingly so apparent appearance, although temporary, not permanent. It's not permanently so. It's impermanently not so. And then it's both. Permanently so and not impermanently so. Seemingly permanently so, but not seemingly permanently so. So it's so and not so, it's both. So there's the other paradox. So it's filled with paradoxes. Absolutely anything that can be expressed in any language by a body, mind, action figure is expressed in one of innumerable ways. So it's going to continue to express. And then it's going to continue to self-realize, examining via self-realization. Since self cannot get out of self, then what else can it apparently appear to be doing? With a life of itself? No. Life is lived through. Okay. What are we? Then we're the energy field that enlivens the body, mind, action figure appearance that's projected. And there's different ways of saying that. And so far, the body, mind, action figure, the birth name and birthright of Paul Hederman appears to be of a similar manner by which that particular body, mind, action figure expresses with that birth name, birthright, Paul Hederman. Now, there are no particular birth names and birthrights. They're just simply birth names and birthrights. They don't need to be claimed by anybody, but that's how self-identification is conjured. Self-identification is conjured based on what that particular body and mind believes. And then it believes what it knows, and then it knows what it believes, vice versa. And all conditional dualities go along with what it believes it knows and what it refers to as I think. Since I can think and come up with thoughts that I believe are my own, and they're not. They're not the original thoughts that belong to any particular body, mind, action figure. And yet, it's going to believe that. It's going to conjure the idea that this body, mind, action figure has its very own original thoughts that absolutely nobody on the entire planet Earth, including all the other planets throughout the infinite universe, that are unknowable. Yeah. And then there's suspect that in the Goldilocks zone, as astronomers speak, oh, there's Earth-like planets, but the distance that they apparently appear to be between this Earth and that Earth-like planet in the distance, it's not reachable. Therefore, it's uncompromisingly futile to continue with entertaining such ideas. In other words, the distance to even send a probe and for that probe to come back, there's just not enough time for a particular body, mind, action figure that's undergoing that particular type of a quest, if you will, or any astronomer that may be considering the possibility that there are other Earth-like planets and other parts outside the solar system, outside of what's referred to as a solar system. Well, those body, mind, action figures that are educated to some degree will comprehend and understand what has just been discussed. Now, that's mainly pertaining to English speakers, though. English-speaking body, mind, action figures that use English as their first language. And especially those that are quite grammatically adroit, that have a fairly broad vocabulary use of terms, of words, and the definitions. So what's interesting, the level of proficiency in a language cannot be so easily gauged or cannot be so easily analyzed when looked into. And looked into that, I'm just going off of so many tangents right now. This body, mind, action figure is catching itself doing that. So 3 hours, good enough. We'll leave it at that for now. Until next time, if there ever is a next time, then that'll be the time to either provide another presentation like this, or there may be other participants, hopefully. That's what we're trying to achieve here. So this body mind action figure, it would simply becoming familiar with Zoom and how to be a host in Zoom and how to use the program. So that's the first step. Anyway, the main subject, main topic, if you want to call it a subject topic, although non-duality is a fact, it is converted, okay, if you will, then. Similarly, how a file is converted from, let's say, a Word document to a PDF file, and vice versa, the other way around, a PDF file to a Word document, so to speak. Anyhow, let's see. Okay, so what time do we let it run out up to? An even 3:03? Yeah. I'm going to see if I can add this into YouTube and then see if I can transfer it into my channel. I don't know if it's possible to do that. But if it is, I'm going to check to see if I can. If I can, I'll add this to the YouTube channel. If not, then it just won't be added. Simple as. It'll just stay intact with Zoom. And if I can't transfer it over, I figure out how to transfer it over to YouTube. But that's going to be the aims and the efforts that this body mind action figure is going to put into it. So here we go. All right. Okay, so let's see. Where do we end it? Oh, guess what? How do I end a presentation in Zoom when I've completely recorded it as far as I would like to, perhaps? Oh yeah, the lower right corner has a red button and it has the word end in it. Wow, how about that? I figured that out all by myself. Amazing. Okay, here we go. Let's let it run out to an even 3:03. And see if that timestamp appears that way as well. Transfer, it might be a second or two off. Here we go.